Hey guys, so we're going to talk about multiples. A multiple, to have a definition of a multiple that's intuitive, it's kind of hard to explain, I guess, but trust me, when you see it, you'll know. You'll be like, oh yeah, it's a multiple. So, we're just going to look at these examples first, and you'll get it. So, all of these numbers are multiples of 5. And all of these numbers here are multiples of 2. So what makes them multiples is that you can divide 5 by any of these numbers, and you get a number without a remainder, a whole number. So you could do like 20 divided by 5 is 4. It's not like 4.27 or something. Or 30 divided by 5 is 6. It's just like a nice, round, juicy, beautiful number. And you could do the same with any of these numbers, right? These 2 goes into all these numbers, and you get a number without a remainder. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. Again, very nice and compact. So that's what makes all of these numbers multiples of these numbers. You can also think of it like, well, I mean, like when you're doing your times tables, right? You have like 5 times 2, 5 times 3, and then you just go down the 5s. The products of all of those, 5 times 2, 5 times 3, 5 times 4, and you just keep going, those are all multiples of 5, right? Because you multiplied 5 by something else to get there. Same with all of these numbers. So that is what a multiple is. And then try to find 3 multiples of 3. Okay, so now I'm just going to write out 3 multiples of 3. One of them could be 3 itself. 3 is a multiple of 3, right? 3 times 1. Another one could be 6, and another one could be 9. So these are 3 multiples of 3 that work. Okay, so just like with the GCF, we have the LCM, which is kind of like the thing that we do with multiples. So again, we're comparing 2 numbers, and we're going to work backwards to forward. So we're trying to find the multiples of these numbers, the common multiples, and then the lowest common multiple. Okay, so let me give an example. So we have like 6 and 4 maybe, right? So let's just try to like write out a few multiples of each. So okay, 6, obviously we have 6 and 4. And then we have 12, 18, 24, all that stuff. Okay, with 4 we have 8, 12, 16. So far we have 12 here actually, so we can kind of stop there. So right now, we wrote out the multiples. We're going to look for the common ones. So right now we just have 12 and 12. And the lowest one is still going to be 12, because it's the only one. So we found 12 as being the lowest common multiple between 6 and 4, because 6 multiplies to 2 to get to 12, 4 multiplies by 3 to get to 12, and that's the lowest we can get that multiple. But of course there are other multiples, right? Like 24, if I was going to keep going 16, 20, 24, this is another multiple of both. But of course this is just the lowest one, and that's what we're looking for. That's the L. Alright, so here are 2 more examples. Let's do this top one first. Okay, so we're trying to find, again, the least common multiple of 12 and 4. Okay, so the thing about this one is that 12 is a multiple of 4, right? Like, this is going to be 4 goes into 12 3 times. So, like, the multiples of 4 would be, 8 and then 12. And then we know the multiples of 12 are going to be 12, 24, etc., etc. But if we already know that 4 goes into 12, then we already know that 12 is going to be the least common multiple between all these, right? Between these, right? Because we know that any of the multiples less than 12 of 4 can't be common between them because it's less than 12. And then we all know that all the multiples of greater, it's just going to be greater than 12 when we're trying to find the lowest one. So whenever you have a case like this, you always know that the LCM is just going to be the bigger number, as long as this number goes into that one, or is a factor of this one. Okay, let's move on to 3 and 17. So this one kind of looks gnarly, right? First, we can do the factors of 3 pretty easily. But it's the factors, or sorry, the multiples of 3 pretty easily. But it's the multiples of 17 that we really need to write out. So we have 17, and then 17 times 2, or 17 plus 17, is going to be 34. And then 17 times 3 is going to be 51. And then you can keep going if you want, 68. But right now, let's just logic this one out, right? We know that the lowest common multiple between 3 and 17, it's going to be greater than 17, right? It's going to be 17 or greater. And 3 doesn't go into 17, so it's not going to be 17. And then I think for this one, I think it would be easiest to use the trick of finding out if 3 goes into a number or if 3 is a factor of a number. So if you recall from the factors video or section or whatever we decide to do, we're 3, to figure out if 3 goes into a number, you take a number, you add up its digits, and if the sum of those digits is a multiple of 3, then the original number is a multiple of 3. So let's just do that. So we have 34, 3 plus 4 equals 7, and then 3 doesn't go into 7, right? So it's not going to be 34. Then we have 51, 5 plus 1 is equal to 6. 3 does go into 6, right? 3 times 2 is 6, so actually that works. So 51 is going to be the lowest common factor of 3 and 17. The other way you can do this is kind of be like, okay, 17's multiples are going to be kind of crazy, and we know that 3 is a bunch of multiples. So we can honestly kind of just go like 17 times 3 is 51, and know that that's the LCM. Kind of, I guess, intuitively, but like if you can't like do that, then like write it out and then try to do the 3's trick. I think that's easiest. Okay, so one last example, 7 and 4, we're trying to find the LCM. So this one is kind of looking like this one a bit, right? Whenever you're like really unsure and don't necessarily like want to write out all the multiples because that might take a while, multiply the numbers together. So 7 times 4 is going to be 28. And that might not always get you the lowest common multiple, but it will get you a multiple. And you can usually start from there and start dividing stuff and be like, oh, if these two numbers multiply to this, and maybe that's like an even number, and you can divide it by 2, and you still get that as a multiple of both, then maybe you can just go from there and work it out. But like a lot of times when it's maybe an even and an odd number, or 2 odd numbers, or a prime number or something, then you can multiply them together, and you can just get the LCM that way. So in this case, you could do that with 7 and 4, and it turns out to be 28.